Today I'm going to show you how to do some really cool stuff with terrain pieces. I've been looking at a lot of maps recently, and one of the things I've noticed some of you guys struggling with is just working with terrain. So I wanted to talk about it in today's video and then challenge myself to build something in a short period of time that ends up looking pretty decent. Spoiler alert, the scene behind me is what I built in just 1 hour. So let's get into this. Let's start off by talking about the different terrain pieces that are in Fortnite Creative. If you go to your galleries, you can click on terrain and you'll come up with a bunch of different types of pieces. There's snowy ones, there's deserty ones, there's brown cliffs, there's grassy things. There's lots of different options to work with. You can also go to the nature gallery right over here up above my head. And then there's some awesome options here as well. You'll see lots of trees, but you'll also see the rock and root nature gallery, the volcanic rock gallery, the tropical rock gallery. There's a bunch of different galleries you can work with for terrain. So I'm just gonna use this as an example. Let's just pull out this piece right here, and then I'm gonna turn it over so that it looks like a rock that's standing up. Okay, I've just put it in the ground there. Okay, now that looks kind of like an interesting rock. Now I'm gonna blow it all the way up so it's nice and big. Okay, now this is looking like a cliff face. But now if I wanna make this look more like a mountain or just a little bit more interesting, all you gotta do is just change the direction of your rocks, and then you can start placing it together. Before you know it, you start to have something that looks more like a mountain that's a unique piece to your map. It doesn't just look like the default piece that you can put down. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen my Zelda map, but this is what I did for all of the mountains in that one Zelda map, and I felt like it looked pretty cool. So now what we have going on here is a unique looking mountain range that took me literally 30 seconds to build. So now I want to take some of these principles and use it a little bit to build something just a little bit more advanced. Okay, so for this example, I want to use the gray cliff examples, and then right here you're gonna see this like wedge shaped piece. This is a great piece to work with. It helps you really build some custom mountains, cliff sides, whatever. I'm gonna make it nice and big here, and then I'm gonna slope this just a bit. And one thing I like to do when I'm building, guys, is just to be totally off grid snap, because this way I can kind of like turn with it. It starts to feel like a little bit more, you know, unique. It's easier to turn as opposed to actually having to like turn it yourself with the different grid snap buttons. You can see here, I'm starting to build like a cliffside here. I don't really necessarily like the slope of this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna slope it a bit more, so it's facing a little bit more downward. And I'm just gonna kind of click around and overlap my builds here. So you can see here, like, this is not overlapped, obviously. There's a nice straight line there that we don't want in our build. So when I'm overlapping, right, like this, see, look, you can see the overlap, how it goes in and out. Just click on that. That overlap is what's making it feel more unique. So now what we've got here is a mountain being made that's totally unique, that's never been made before in Fortnite Creative. Now, you may have seen similar mountains, but you get the point. This is how you do custom things in Fortnite Creative. Now, the cool thing about this is you can make totally unique landscapes just depending on what pieces you're using. So let's pretend we want to make like a snowy mountain. This is another piece I really like to use, and this is in all of the nature galleries. But this way we can make some like gently sloping hills with this piece. So I'm just gonna, you know, give it a little bit of an angle here, and then we're gonna build it up and just make sure it's overlapping just in the right way without it, you know, coming up too much. Now, you may want to have some like rocky lines in your slope here, but for this purpose, I just want to build like a little hill and make sure it's not like poking out too much. There we go. Well, there we go. We've got our snowy hill being built here, and it makes it a little bit more of an interesting landscape as opposed to just like a flat white bottom. So let me show you what I'm gonna do for a little bit of a speed build to explain this a little bit better. I grew up going to a lake in southern Utah, northern Arizona called Lake Powell. It's a lake that goes straight through a canyon. It's just so beautiful. So I took this image right here, which is an actual place. It's called Horseshoe Bend, and I wanted to recreate it in Fortnite using just a few terrain pieces. So I started with that wedge piece I showed you earlier and picked my like anchor point, and that's where I started building the rest of the outline of the canyon. It's all about outlining things so that I knew where I was building and wasn't just kind of shooting from the hip. Now I should say this is just an outline. I'll go in later and fix these walls so they don't look so uniform, because right now they look unnatural. They don't look like a real wall. Next was setting up the sandy banks of my river, and once again this was just an outline so I knew where I was building. But I used this piece as big as it could go and just outlined where the river was gonna go. And then I used the elemental block gallery to pick out the water that I wanted and placed that at the right height. And then I worked on the interior line of the river, but then it just looked too unnatural. You can see the straight lines. So not a lot of nature has straight lines, guys. And so I wanted it to look a little bit more natural, repositioning all of those pieces to look right. And then it was time to work on my walls. And so this part was really important to just re-angle some of these pieces a little bit so that it was overlapping, guys. It was all about the overlap to make this look more natural. And even I wanted to go horizontal with that same piece so that it just made it look like there's rocks coming out and it just looked a lot more natural. Then it was just a few touch-up things to make it look cooler. I have the grass just sticking out a little bit to make it look greener. And we had our horseshoe bend here. I feel like it looks pretty good. I've been there, and this is pretty close, guys. So go and play around with the awesome terrain pieces and try and build something awesome yourself. It's all about practice, guys. You might think you're not a good builder now. The more you practice, the better you're gonna get. Trust me.